We welcome in Anthony Treash, Pro Football Focus, into the program. I don't know if you heard about that story, but when Brandon Allen, former Arkansas quarterback, was asked about his truck getting burned down, his response was, yeah, when it stunk, my golf club's in there. So if your car was burned down, if you found out that someone intentionally burned down your car, what would your reaction be?
I don't know. I'm honestly taken away by the story. I need to know more about it. If my golf clubs were in there, I'd probably be a little bit more upset, but no, I would be, I don't even know what my reaction would be. I guess just like I am now, shocked.
My reaction right now would be, my God, I had a full tank of gas. That would be my reaction today.
Just filled up yesterday.
It just filled up.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was something that he was frustrated about. And Anthony Brandon was a guy that I don't know got the credit he deserved, especially in 2015 when he put up some pretty prolific numbers. He was in a tough situation. His first start was against, if I remember correctly, Alabama in 2012 after Tyler Wilson got a concussion. They just got throttled in that game. He slowly progressed. He was in a new coaching staff under Brett Bielema and stuff. KJ Jefferson in a kind of a similar situation, no-win situation with Chad Morris, starts to have a little success under Kendall Briles and Sam Pittman. You've got him at 26 right now in your rankings. What does KJ, in your mind, have to do this season to improve his overall college quarterback stock?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for KJ this year just to start. I mean, Arkansas's got an absolute gauntlet of a schedule, and if things go south, hopefully they don't. If they do, hopefully his car doesn't get burnt down. But, no, KJ, I think last year he checked all the boxes. Right. I mean, he did everything you kind of wanted at the quarterback position. And, the biggest thing, too, is with this offense is that he's pretty protected in it. Right. You're not getting a lot of pure passing concepts. It's pretty quarterback friendly. But, again, he carried it out as designed. And he showed he can make an impact with his unique skill set and a massive frame, the designed run game there. So I think, honestly, the biggest thing is just, if Arkansas does get down, then that's when those pure passing concepts are going to come out, and that's when he's going to have to probably do a little bit more. And that's where we kind of want to see some growth from him from this season. So, I mean, sitting right there at number 26 is, I would kind of classify this like that quarterback ranking, and I put out a top 50 over at PFF.com. I think the top four are pretty, I think they're different in a good way compared to everybody else. And then I think you go from 5 to maybe 30-something, and I think you probably could argue any of those guys deserve to be in any of those slots, right? I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs what you kind of prefer, at the quarterback position. But, honestly, that's probably the biggest thing with KJ. But, last year he did take a massive step forward. So if he can just show, if Arkansas does kind of need him to put the team on his back, and they're going to need to do that this year at times, just given their schedule. And, he did a good job of it last year, but getting to that next level, that elite level play in those situations is kind of the difference there.
How do you think his game translates, when you got to see him at the end of last year, to the next level in the NFL? I mean, NFL teams don't like to design a lot of runs for the quarterback because they pay him so much, but that's the core of KJ's game. And how does his game translate now, and what has to change this year in regards? You mentioned the passing stuff. What about it translates now, and what has to change for him to be selected in the first few rounds of the NFL draft at some point?
Yeah, KJ, he kind of has that skill set that makes a very good college quarterback, but that's when the pro projection gets a little tricky. And honestly, what I just mentioned a minute ago about being in that quarterback-friendly offense, that's probably the biggest thing, too, that's hurting him a little bit. I remember this past cycle, I talked to multiple NFL coaches that, they were pretty upset with just the way some of these college offenses ran because, in last year's draft class, you had Matt Corral at Ole Miss, Sam Howell at UNC, and it was difficult for a lot of these guys to get a good evaluation of them because they weren't asked to do a whole lot, right? They didn't have those NFL complex reads there. And that kind of hurts KJ being in this offense that, doesn't necessarily have that. It's a little bit friendlier there, makes for possibly an efficient passing offense at the collegiate level, but it doesn't necessarily help him, show that he can be a, franchise quarterback at the next level. So, it's that. I think also he could probably just speed up his play style a little bit. And is that going to happen? Probably not. That's just kind of the quarterback he is. And, that's fine. But, honestly, they would probably like to see that just a little bit quicker. And like you said, when your biggest trump card is your, just what you can do in the designed run game at the quarterback position. Unless you're someone like, Lamar, who's just a freak in that sense. It does kind of hurt you a little bit. It can be just an added bonus, but if that's what you're probably relying on to get to that higher ranking, that's where you can probably get hurt. So that's where I kind of go back to what I mentioned a minute ago, just about showing that, he can handle, a little bit more on his plate. That's the biggest thing for him and kind of improving his draft stock.
It kind of reminds you, talking about going from one level to the next and the style of plays. It reminds me, Bobby Petrino was at Arkansas, made this comment. I've heard other coaches in the college game at that time make the comment of their frustration with high school offenses and quarterbacks never under center. So they come to the college level and you need to take a snap under center. It's something they may not have done in several years or maybe ever in their career. So I think there's probably a similarity in that kind of frustration you're talking about with the NFL coaches.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like a prime example of that, we're going to see Cam Ward over at Washington State, and he come over from Incarnate Word after a couple of years. And the big reason why he's at Incarnate Word in the first place is because his high school offense was a wing tee. He didn't do it. He did not know how to play quarterback when he went to Incarnate Word. He had to learn everything, right? I mean, he never ran a play action fake in his life until he showed up to college at Incarnate Word. But he showed the tools that at least got him the scholarship there. And now he's at Washington State. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing there. I think it's just going to kind of remain in that way. I don't think we're going to see, just kind of everything stay the same. Honestly, if it does, football's going to get a little bit boring. So it's a good and a bad thing, just kind of depending which ones you look at it from.
Anthony Treash with us this morning, Pro Football Focus. One of the more intriguing games on Arkansas' schedule that not a lot of people are talking about is South Carolina Week 2. Spencer Rattler coming over from Oklahoma after losing the job to Caleb Williams, put up really good numbers. You are really high on Spencer Rattler. Why do you think he's going to have success this year in Columbia?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I've never seen anything like that, like the whole situation with Spencer Rattler, just the rise and the fall so quickly within a couple of months span. It was interesting last year. Well, I'll start with 2020. I mean, that year he was one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He was one of the highest graded ones. He's still our highest graded quarterback in our database going back to 2020, as a matter of fact. And that year you saw kind of the typical, young, inexperienced quarterback mistakes, and that's just the willingness to play outside of the structure of the offense, just a little bit too much reliant on that, inviting in pressure, holding onto the ball too long, just ignoring the check down, doesn't want to take what the defense is handing him, and wants to go from the home run downfield. And that's typical. But, with his arm talent, he still found a way to make a ton of special throws, and it eventually led Oklahoma to the Big 12 championship game, right? I mean, Oklahoma didn't win the Big 12 that year because everybody else outside of Spencer Rattler was awesome. I mean, they had a good team, but that was because of Spencer Rattler. And last year, that stretch where he didn't really put up the numbers that a lot of people were expecting to see from him, the Heisman favorite, the preseason favorite to be the number one overall pick, closer games than expected. And you look at the play calling, and you could kind of see the lack of trust there. So I wasn't too surprised to see him get benched just because you saw those downfield opportunities just kind of, get taken away slowly but surely. As those first month kind of went along there. With him, he's still one of the most talented quarterbacks in college football. I think in this offense at South Carolina, a more pro-style offense, I think he's really going to excel there. The offensive line's a little shaky, but with I would say one of his greatest strengths just, running and throwing outside the pocket, like I said, creating off structure. That's the biggest thing. But again, the biggest thing you want to see him clean up is just not getting too reliant on that and wanting to be kind of the playmaker on a play-to-play basis. But, like I said, he's still at the top of pretty much every metric we have here at PFF over the last couple of seasons. And if he was at, 127 other FBS programs last year, he's a starter from start to end, and we're talking about a completely different situation. And, I think a lot of the narratives that people think he's not as good, he's not a good quarterback, just stems from the personality rumors, the Netflix documentary, right? But, again, he's still very much one of the best quarterbacks in college football. There's a reason why everybody thought he was going to win the Heisman last year and be the number one overall pick. That player didn't really leave him. He didn't play up to snuff for the first few games. He still played pretty good in our metrics. He actually had the lowest negatively graded throw rate in college football last year, which a lot of people wouldn't believe. And I challenge anybody to go back and watch every throw, then you will see that. I mean, it's just a rough start in that Tulane game when all the eyes are on you. First play, or what was the second throw, first throw, interception, right? And it was a classic Spencer Rattler mistake. But, he still kind of fixed that. And also, he was just a little bit more willing there with Lincoln Riley. But, again, the leash was short, and when you can't create those explosive plays downfield because the opportunities aren't necessarily there, then you're probably going to look in another direction there. And, again, Caleb Williams, that replaced him, I mean, that's a top 3 quarterback, I think, too. I mean, he's still one of the most talented quarterbacks in college football. So I think Spencer Rattler is going to succeed at South Carolina. It's just kind of like how will he get there? I think his receiving core is very much underrated. I mean, Austin Stogner, more traditional tight end, but Jaheim Bell, a versatile weapon, that's listed as tight end. And then you have Josh Mann returning. You have Juice Wells, the James Madison transfer, who was one of the 5 most valuable players at the FCS level over the last couple of years. Corey Rucker coming over from Ark State. I mean, he has a ton of weapons there to dispose of. The defense is in good shape. So I think South Carolina's, they're not going to contend by any means, but they could play spoiler to some of those teams that have a lot of high expectations. And Arkansas could be one of them. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting, and that's like when I first went over all the schedules, that was the game the first few weeks. I was like, that's the one I'm looking for because I think we're going to find out a lot about really both of these
Partners
teams.
at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.